We knew it was another one of those Thursday night games where it was tough to watch, and whoever lost would get eviscerated. Last week, it was the Broncos in that spot, and the Colts, it was kind of forgotten. Hey, you weren't all that great, too. But the Colts were winners, and we love winners in America, and certainly the sport made in America, played in America in the National Football League. So then why was Ron Rivera so angry in the press conference? Well, he was spun up because this team didn't perform well, and there were a lot of mistakes. And, yeah, they're 2-4, and they hadn't won since that Week 1 game against Jacksonville. Normally, when you have a 4-game losing streak ended, your problems, your pressures get lifted. But Wentz just had 99 yards passing, another 3-sack game. They couldn't really run it very well. Part of it's the offensive line. Part of it is Wentz just holds on to it too damn long. Part of it's also the play calling. At one point, Wentz inside the 10, they had a keeper with him. And I tweeted out, take the Carson Wentz red zone keeper play, rip it out of the playbook, and never acknowledge its existence. Because you're not going to, I mean, at one point, Kirk Herbstreit's like, nobody's taking the cheese with Wentz running and holding on to it.
And did he roll his ankle and needed to get retaped after that?
What are we doing? You got Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel just for 2 guys' names to throw out there. So put it all together. It ain't pretty. And then, of course, it's the week that started earlier this week that even Rivera admitted himself he created the controversy and distraction when he was asked earlier this week about the difference between his team and the rest of the NFC East doing so well. And his answer was quarterback. And then started talking about how other quarterbacks have systems that they've been in or they've been around in their organizations a while. And the retort is like, well, Daniel Jones is a new coach and he's a new man. He looks like a new man. That's one guy. Cooper Rush, I guess he knows the system because he's been in it, even though he hasn't played in it. And then you got Jalen Hurts. Yeah, it has a new system. It's been there for a year plus. Wentz is just new here? Okay. But it sure sounded like we're throwing a lot on the lap of Carson Wentz in the same way it happened in Philadelphia and Indianapolis, and it's now part 3. You know, and this part 3 isn't going as well as The Godfather either. So that's part of the backdrop. And then on top of it, there's a report from Don Van Natta, Seth Wickersham, and more from ESPN yesterday. This full-on long read on Daniel Snyder being execrable. You can look it up if you need. And part of that long read about how Snyder's got dirt on other owners and the commissioner, according to there was a lot of unnamed sources in there, but it's a very sensitive subject matter. So a lot of people were just talking to this group of top-notch reporters for ESPN anonymously, saying that Snyder's got dirt on people to try and ward off being forced to sell. The number of investigations into Washington and Snyder. And then he was there last night, and Al Michaels even turned into information man / analyst by saying he believes, reading the tea leaves, that the league just wants him out.
That kind of surprised me that he said that.
A lot of people. So this is the whole backdrop to Rivera showing up in the postgame press conference, because part of this story also included the nugget that Daniel Snyder had something to do or was the one person who said, let's get Wentz. And everyone's like, well, yes, Mr. Snyder will do it. And the point of that one was like, wait a minute, you're supposed to have been suspended and nothing to do with the team. So how is he chiming in on a subject matter that he has no business chiming in on, whether it was allowable under the suspension from the league or just in general, like, hey, man, if I were you, based on your track record, I'd kind of stay out of matters as to who should be the quarterback or not and leave it up to the professionals you should be delegating to. So when Rivera strode to the podium last night, was asked if he had any advice for Carson Wentz, this was his answer.
No, what's important is these guys, okay? For the last couple of weeks, honestly, I'm gonna speak my mind for a second. It's been hard. It really has. You lose 4 games in a row, and everybody wants to get you, just get on you. And they've played their asses off. They have. They played their asses off for everybody. They come out and they show up. They work hard, all right? They don't complain, okay? They hear all this stuff, and they got to deal with it. I get that, and I respect them for that because they're resilient. They come back. Everybody keeps wanting to say, I didn't want anything to do with Carson. Well, I'm the guy that pulled out the sheets of paper, that looked at the analytics, that watched the tape in the when we were at Indianapolis, okay? And that's what pisses me off because the young man doesn't deserve to have that all the time. I'm sorry, I'm done.
That's it. And by the way, when he means Indianapolis and pointing up, he's talking about the Combine, which is in Indianapolis, and where, we had Frank Reich in the booth on the last day of the Combine. It was obvious, can we get rid of Carson now? So it was obvious he was in play. And part of the process is, Washington was kicking the tires on trying to go YOLO on Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers and anyone else who was reportedly rumored to be available. But I saw that last night, and I thought to myself, is this the manifestation of months and, years of his tenure being there and being the one who answers all the questions about what's going on with the team outside of the football world? Ron Rivera answers for a lot of what ESPN was reporting on with Dan Snyder, a lot. And it reminded me of the soundbite Alex Smith delivered to us back in March when he called into this program about how you can't help but be distracted in Washington with the everything else. Here's what Alex Smith had to say.
I think you got to try to eliminate the noise there. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of distractions. That entire organization, everything surrounding it, and obviously deservedly, it's been flawed the last 20 years. There's a lot of stuff going on there, a lot of distractions. And it makes it difficult to kind of focus in on the football. So
you're saying whatever was going on in the front office was affecting your ability to play football and focus on?
Yeah, how could it not? How could it not? For me, all the stuff there with just the entire organization from ownership down, head coaching and GM. It's a lot of there's been historically a lot of drama there. That organization is a really storied franchise, and there's a lot of turmoil and a lot of distractions. So to say that the stuff going on in the building doesn't infiltrate the locker room or out on the field would be crazy. That happens everywhere. I think that's what great organizations eliminate, and the bad ones have a hard time with.
I think we're seeing that right now. What do you think, gents?
1,000%.
I think that's being brought to bear.
Yeah.
Now, again, a lot of the subtext here is the exchange that Rivera had with a reporter about Wentz and saying just the word quarterback when he was asked about the differences between the 5-0 and 2 4-1 teams and at the time his 1-4 Washington Commanders. But Rivera's been the guy at the forefront of talking about the name change, about the logo change, about the color scheme change, about everything. Anytime that anything gets brought up about Daniel Snyder, they ask him. I'm wondering if he's chafing under all that. He won. That was a winning coach last night.
Yeah, no, exactly. They won.
And he sounded like a guy, like the last time we saw a coach rant after a nationally televised game against the Bears, that was Denny Green. He lost that one. Washington next game against Green Bay. And then at Indianapolis, so he can look up Ron Rivera at the suite where he made these evaluations, I guess. Dan Snyder apparently will be allowed in the building for that. Then home for Minnesota at Philadelphia. Look out. That's the Carson Wentz Monday night. Let's everybody sit down again and watch Washington nationally return to his initial place of business. They're 2-4. Yeah. They won their first. They won their latest. But there's a hell of a lot going on, as usual, more.
Just feels like there's been a black cloud over this team for such a long time.
Well, hopefully they'll get Chase Young back. That's got to be a difference maker. I don't know when he's going to return. That guy Montez Sweat, they got some players, man.
They do.
And that kid who scored the touchdown last night is really, really good.